Okay, we should be live. Hopefully, everyone can see and hear us. I apologise for my voice; it's still recovering from the weekend. So, um, uh, let's go down to here. We've got hey Vivian, hey Greg, hey Leah, hey Anton, hey Sharon, hey Katie, and others will probably join now that we've gone live. So hopefully everyone's doing well, and those that were at the BTS, hopefully you've recovered from it all. Hey Jim. So, how do Jim? So, so yeah, tonight we are joined by Eleanor of Tortoise Club. So, so probably I'd imagine actually a large amount of people watching tonight probably haven't heard of you. So, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction into who you are and what you do?
Okay, I'm based in the UK and I run probably one of the busiest tortoise, like specific tortoise and turtle rehoming centre. It's been running as a non-profit for over 10 years. The organisation itself has been running for 20 years, and I've been involved since the beginning. I also lecture internationally at the World Conferences and do quite a bit with stud book work, conservation, and welfare basically. So, trying to improve connections with welfare and work, whether you come from the trade or if you're a private keeper or working with zoos. So, just trying to get everyone to talk to each other and do cool stuff and look after their animals a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey Moon, hey Steve, hey Claire, hey Manning, hey Natalie. I think that's fantastic because tortoises, my experience of tortoises, I won't review professionally. My mum keeps quite a few and stuff, but they've been one of these things that everyone seems to have kept at some point, but especially historically, everyone kept, but not particularly well. Um, and obviously, a lot of species long-lived animals, and where are all those old tortoises?
I think there's still a lot knocking around. When I started 20 years ago, I would say 80% of the tortoises that came in for health checks, we'd have like 100 animals in for a health check event. And rehoming, again, we'd probably see just over 100 individuals a year. I'd say a good 80% of those animals were animals that came over before the ban in 1984. But I'd say now we're about 50, maybe like 60% are still pre 1984 collected from the wild animals. But we're increasingly seeing young adult tortoises that have belonged to someone for even up as much as 10 years, 5 to 10 years, which I think the data is suggesting because it became easy to obtain tortoises again probably about 10 years ago.
Yeah,
It was a little bit more specialist before that. So we've seen a real spike. And even in the pet trade now, we're still seeing over 100,000 tortoises coming over into the UK every year. And they live 80 to 100 years. So we have a massive population of tortoises knocking around. We really love our tortoises. Um, I think a lot of you will know the data already. Like reptiles are in the top three most popular pet in the UK, and that's lizards, snakes, and tortoises. So there's a lot of them,
yeah,
and
that
we like them.
absolutely is. And they are one of these things that a lot of people tend to like. I think sometimes what I find it sort of my joy to do that actually sometimes a lot of people are even surprised that tortoises are reptiles sometimes because they'll be like, oh, we don't like reptiles, but we like
Yeah,
tortoises. So I was like, well, they're a reptile.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm
A
like,
lot of
oh,
people that are that don't like reptiles, but they do like tortoises. They don't count them as reptiles, which can be a double-edged sword because I think a wide variety of people like tortoises, but it doesn't mean that they're treating them like an exotic as they should.
yeah,
But I think actually we've got a lot to thank the internet for. I think a lot of those basic mistakes that we were making a decade ago are becoming a thing of the past. But you still get some road crash animals coming from time to time.
absolutely. Hey, Susan. So Claire's just well, actually worked for Sussex Terranian Society for a few years as a volunteer. She even wrote a book on safe wild plants for feeding. and feeding is certainly something that I want to chat about, because there's a lot that can be said about what to feed and what not to feed to tortoises.
Yeah, I'd really love to actually. Sussex Chelonia Society, are they affiliated with any of the other organisations or completely independent? I wonder. Nice to hear of another one.
Yeah, there's a few, isn't there now? Like the British Chelonia Society is probably sort of one of the main ones in the UK. You got the Tortoise Club.
It's quite fragmented. That's the thing. It'd be really nice if everyone kind of connected a bit more, which is why I set up doing the conferences a few years ago, because it's a great way to kind of try to get to know other people in the community and getting people collaborating, sharing ideas and making friends and having a laugh. I think sometimes we all take it a bit too seriously, and it's quite nice to try and be nice to each other sometimes. And the clubs, everyone's doing different things, but we're all learning, learn from each other. So the British group was running before I was born. I mean, it's been running for so long. I mean, I think they're one of the oldest organisations. They do a lot of stuff in the wild. They do give grants to PhD and master students to do research to try and help with conservation. They do work with some terrestrial tortoises, particularly giant Galapagos tortoises, now Aldabran tortoise types, but also sea turtles as well. So they're quite traditional. And then there's been this new, they don't do so much with people who keep tortoises as a pet. So that's, I think, why so many smaller organisations have set up. So they've got like regional groups associated with the Chelonia group, but they're not, and they're the ones that really do husbandry stuff, which people are crying out to get information, because there's been there's so much about tortoises that there's so many myths and still lots of questions. It's quite complex, as with any reptile, really. There's always more. Agree with that.
Yeah, so because what is based out of Lewis as independent society, I did a lot of work with British Society and CITES, and the lady that ran it retired, and a few other members took it over.
Yeah, that's really cool. You guys should come and stay in Norfolk. Come and see us, or we'll come and see you.
So yeah, a few people are supporting that they've fair passions, but that got a spur fine, 12 years old, rescued, didn't have any UV or basking, was kept in a rabbit cage.
It's so common, like the reptile community can do to help support point of sale and encouraging both private and pet trade to have a certain base level, like the guinea pig and rabbit fraternity have done in terms of the basics. People are keeping animals. They do just think that you can just chuck them in a rabbit cage. I mean, a plastic rabbit with mesh on top, a very small outdoor space for the first 1 or 2 years in that sunlight in the summer can work really well, because it's protecting them from predators. It's a very basic way, easy way to get started and securely give natural sunshine, which is the best that you can do. There's no light on the market that can match it. So I think it really depends on the context, but obviously our winters are a lot shorter than where these animals come from, which is when all these amazing lighting products come into play. So I personally like to use the T5 Desert strips with a separate basking lamp. But a lot of people are still using the combis, which is the thing to use those. And if you've just got one lamp, But as soon as you start getting adults or having a couple, it's well worth investing in the separates and having the T5 deads, because it throws out a better level of D3 across the enclosure. It helps illuminate the enclosure, and if you can really slash out and get one which is double tube, you can then do the have a nice grow light in the T sockets, and then a desert UV as well, which is even better because then you can have plants growing in there as well. So yeah, it's amazing what we can do now for these animals.
Yeah, absolutely. With like units like the Thermo Zoo Pro from Arcadia that came out from a zoo conference a few years ago, of finding a way of combining T5 UV, potentially LEDs, and also heat to try and combine basically 3 or 4 different types of wavelengths, lamps into one big unit. And something that came from, I think it was BCA, took a lightwave growth technology lightwave that just had 4 T5 bulbs in or tubes in. They took them all out, took the reflectors out, and basically drilled or cut out 2 big holes in the middle of the unit to mount halogens in the middle, to then put the UVs back in either side and stuff. And John Courtney Smith was like, "Well, we can do that, and then you can still have a warranty on the unit, sort of thing." To so you can have the different lamps that aren't then combine those wavelengths together rather than relying on one single lamp. So, but even like to say, see,
focus on like where we are.
Oh, sorry.
Hello.
I didn't quite catch that bit.
Yeah, a little bit crackly. I think because of where we are in the world, like the northern hemisphere, and quite high up, we talk about lighting a lot, and we talk calcium deficiency a lot, because you do see animals that can't use their back legs. They haven't been given extra calcium on their food. They grow elderly tortoises where they've got vision issues or muscle issues, or they can't pass eggs, or they've become egg bound because they haven't been given just a little bit on their food, little and often. But it's really interesting. I've just got back from America, and they don't talk about putting calcium supplement on. They don't talk about UV lighting because they're closer to the equator. Like if you're in South Carolina, they've got longer days. The tortoises are warmer and got a higher metabolism. They can get away with the vitamins without so much on. And also, I think just because of that part of the world, they've got a lot of calcium in the ground anyway. And the food isn't as rich because it's quite dry. So it's really interesting to see like other parts of the world. But I think unique to the UK, just because of where we are, our food is quite lush. It doesn't have much calcium naturally in it, and it's quite rich. It's so important when I meet someone who's got a tortoise, even if it's an elderly tortoise, just telling them to even just put really inexpensive limestone flour, a little bit on their food. It hardly costs anything. Tortoises hate it, but if you just start very light and you just put a little bit on all meals, it does make a difference. But it's all to see that we don't. So many factors related all from in the UK and witnessing, a tortoise that has slowly got ill. Because that's the other thing, it takes them so long to get ill. By the time they start looking ill, it could have taken them 20 years, 40 years to get ill. And sometimes when they start showing it, it's too late. And a lot of literature suggests that that's actually a mechanism to not look ill, to hide it. So that's what is a lot better comes to. I'm sure the same applies to a lot of other reptiles. So yeah, that's been really fascinating. And then again, like in the Netherlands, a lot of reptiles are kept in terrariums in basements and don't ever go outside. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting. And they don't have UV lighting, but they get through C3 calcium supplementation instead of giving the UV lighting, which again I find super weird.
Yeah.
So there are different ways of arriving at the same outcome. So that's why I'm always saying, like, if we're on, well, you have it exactly this way. It's like, well, actually, do we? Who knows that? Who's done the study? Where's the paper? Because it's not black and white. But what we do have to do is, not do it at all. There are some things which are, but at the same time, I think we have to be like, trying to be diplomatic when we do each other and just go, well, that could be it, but maybe also put some calcium well, if you don't mind. So I often get like, I tortoise, I've had it 30 years and I've never had any problems with it. Why should I start putting calcium on now?
Yeah.
And that it's exactly what I just said. Sometimes by the time they start looking ill, it's too late. So that's been an interesting journey. But I would really like to see Brits take a more scientific approach to looking after tortoises. I think it's just we've always seen them as just a really cute thing that walks across the lawn in the summer, and people don't really see them as reptiles, as you mentioned earlier. But actually, they are so fascinating if you give them a chance. Actually, start reading about where they're from and how they survive, and eaten. Just the habitats that they live in are absolutely stunning. And if you get the bug and give yourself a chance to learn a bit about plants, you can make some absolutely beautiful spaces for them, which you can enjoy as well as them. And I think one of my biggest privileges being able to have seen some of these animals in their natural habitat, and I'm not sure that's something that future generations are going to be able to see, just because there's too many of us on the planet and we're not very good at sharing. But with the organisations that I try and give time to, like more of the conservation ones, what they're trying to do is actually buy land or collaborate with NGOs that already have nature parks, so that populations are maintained and monitored in their natural habitats. And I think that's something really important for the future. We know about the South American rainforest, for example. There's a lot of it, I know, but then the other thing is, how can we tell people, why should we be telling them to cut down their forests when we cut ours down hundreds of years ago? So that's the other argument to have. We're never going to win. It's kind of like a dramatic.
No, it's a
really
very, very
tricky.
difficult one. We literally speak about the same thing. Yeah, in zoos, like it's all well and good us, having a go at people in Borneo that cut down their rainforest to plant palm oil and stuff when we cut down all our forests to grow corn, sort of thing. And they're like, well, you've done the same thing, so why can't we? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's they're fantastic. Her first love was a tortoise. Oh. Oh. Can you hear me? Hey. Okay. Sounds good. She's got 2 horse fields now. Weather's getting better. As again, outside to get some sunlight. And sunlight's definitely a great thing for them. I can't hear you for some reason, Eleanor. Yeah, I'm a big fan of. Hopefully, Anna will be able to rejoin us. But yeah, I'm a big fan of depending on species, but for a lot of the commonly kept species of tortoises in the UK, to go outside, especially when the weather's nice and it's nice and sunny. So, but also to have big enough indoor enclosures for them for the times that they can't go outside, with all the UV and heat lights and stuff. I mean, we certainly can talk about sulcatas. Sorry to hear that, Greg. Sometimes when they do go. And she's just gonna try and reload back in. She's got two Marginata out at the moment, because one of these found is rat proof, and yeah, that could be a difficult one. Yeah, there are some species that don't hibernate, like the sulcatas, leopards, redfoots.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yep.
Yay!
Hey,
Sorry
Shady.
about that. I'm not quite sure what happened. I'll try and So, what did I miss?
So, we were just saying which sources they had. So, she's got 2 horse fields, and now the weather's getting better. Hers are outside to get sunlight. And mainly would like to talk about sulcatas, because you recently got a young sulcata.
Me about Horsefield. No. Nice. Can hear me.
You keep freezing.
So, oh no. Let's see if I can get, but can you hear my?
So rat proof and can be one of the biggest things with tortoises. Oh dear, Steve. Oh dear. Yeah, I certainly would recommend for hibernating species, hibernating them outside naturally, as people call it, allowing them just to get down on the ground. But our winters are different to the winters that where they come from naturally, and again, get really unpredictable. No, so yeah, fridge is by far probably the favoured method and best method nowadays. So, hey Jack. Some of the technical issues this evening. So hopefully, I was just trying to sort of reload again to hopefully be able to come back on. Oh. But yeah, in terms of tortoises, yeah, work. I've got a couple of sulcatas and 4 leopard tortoises. And then my parents have sulcata. They've got leopard tortoises as well. They've got marginata. They've got Horsefield, Hermans, Mediterranean spurred. Got elongated. Got various redfoots and cherry redfoots, marbled redfoot. They've got Indian star. You know, got Bell's hingebacks. Got pancakes. So we've got quite a few species of tortoise. Other than all of them, they've got multiples of all of them. I think, well, apart from the elongated. They're due to be. I think they gain another 2 or 3 redfoots at some point. Now they're rehoming. Yeah, Greg. Yeah, basically, they'll have like a fridge just for their tortoise or tortoises, and because you can control the temperature a lot better that way. No, I don't have any Galapagos man. I've seen Galapagos. London Zoo, Chester used to have them, and theirs went to Crocodiles of the World. And some of them I've seen the ones at Crocodiles of the World, which I've actually bred theirs. And there is a lot of round tortoises out there at the moment. They're pretty cool. My mum probably would. Again, don't think I can hear you. No sound. No, I can't hear you at all. Yeah, they were mainly. They were fantastic to see. I was able with the females at London. I was able to go in with them and sort of interact with them, which was really cool. It was only the largest horse I've ever sort of interacted with. what I will do whilst waiting is I'm going to share this in chat. So this link is what Eleanor sent me as a list for anyone who wants a list of healthy food plants for tortoises. That's a list that Eleanor compiled. So, sort of tortoise food is something that I certainly want to touch on. It's I talk about it a lot. I still see a lot of really bad information out there sometimes. Osmond, even like from shops and online and stuff. That just even advising really bad stuff. So, hey Matt, all owl tabs are awesome as well. I've been in with a few owl dabs, not real big ones, but they're pretty cool as well. And I'll also share the link for the Tortoise Club.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yep.
What just happened?
I don't know. I can hear you.
Not cool. Yeah. Okay, well, let's see how long this lasts. I don't know.
Yeah.
If that's still helpful. If it's still helpful to talk. Yeah.
So, what we got, actually, people got talking about was actually around diet and stuff. So I just put in the link to the Healthy Tortoise food plants thing under the Tortoise Club website.
Like, obviously, the tortoise table is like the Bible, but it can be overwhelming when people are first starting out, which is why we did that initial care sheet, because it was just kind of like a bite size of like the top 20 that we use, and that they're separated into ones you can get at garden centres or the car boot or from friends, and the ones that you should be able to Google image and find with some practice locally, and you'll get more at different times of the year. So at the moment we're feeding a lot of nipplewort and plantain, chicory, cornflower leaves, because we grow those in the seeds that we sell. They grow like really easily, but then in a few months time we'll start doing the flowers more. So we're getting some pansies and violas at the moment, but later on it will be more roses, lavatiria, hibiscus, and they just look so nice anyway. It's like not really a hardship to grow them. And nasturtium flowers are a great one as well as snapdragon flowers. So I hope that's helpful. But I know someone was saying about putting the tortoises out, and that's so nice to see, because there is still loads of people that are really scared, and they take it quite literally that you can't put a tortoise out if it's t-shirt weather, like unless you're wearing a t-shirt. And like some people don't wear a t-shirt, like they only wear a t-shirt for like 4 weeks in the year kind of thing. Like you're like, t-shirt weather is not the compass to go by. It should be more looking at the weather station app and saying, well, if it's going to go like below 8 degrees at night at winter, like maybe like at night, then maybe I need to just bring the tortoise in at night so it doesn't like try and fall asleep on me and go into hibernation too early. So, but at the moment we're at 8-9, so we're just making sure they're in their houses, unless they're vulnerable, like they're really delicate species or they're babies, then obviously we're bringing those in sheds at night. But other than that, they're going in the sheds. I'm going off on a tangent. What was I talking about before? Weeds?
That's right. No, we love tangents. So.
Oh yeah, so going out. So like the temperatures, like I say, like if you can feel a bit of warmth on your face when you go out, then it's fine for the tortoises to go out. Like the animals, like obviously, other than the hideous rain that apparently you've been getting, like I don't know because I've been in America, Like the last 3 weeks, apparently it's rained loads in Britain. Like obviously you want to bring them in, but before then, just before I left, like in May, it wasn't that bad. So we were like warming them up for an hour or so, and then we were putting them out like till about like 2-3 o'clock, two or three in the afternoon, and then we bring them in again. So it's just the spring and autumn. You're giving them a bit of help to extend their summer. So yeah, it's not rocket science.
No, absolutely, and it's. I mean, even if it's, in other words, a bit, as long as as long as it's not raining or snowing or there's, as long as there's no frost on it on the ground either and stuff, for an hour or two, it does them the world of good. And even just the fresh air does them the world of good.
Even if it's overcast, they will be getting natural UV. And we've also got to think about the fresh air as well. It's really good for them. Tortoises can't cough. They've got a solid chest. So getting them out of a dusty indoor environment is always a good idea. Enrich all that. So as giving them make a space for them. You only have for half a minute and they can vanish, and it's easy to get distracted, and it's really hard to find a tool just if it buggers off. So is it I'm allowed to say that actually, but the so slabs, slate, terracotta, that sort of thing, because the different temperatures regulate their own temperature, so it helps keep them fun. You can find it on my YouTube tortoise. I haven't there. People like poke them. They like what I've done, but it's about making time for it as well. Just a small plug there.
Yep, absolutely.
And someone was asking about sulcata as well, weren't they?
Yes. So yeah, Mei actually, she recently got a young sulcata. I think. So she's been asking me about because obviously I work with sulcatas at my place of work and stuff. There's always, again, there's so many things out there that are misleading and stuff. So what would you advise someone on sulcatas?
Particularly with sulcatas, but probably with ulcers, the worrying problem that I'm seeing is animals growing too quickly. And also people not really realizing how high fiber their diets are, particularly if they're a desert species like leopard and sulcata. If you want them to grow in the most healthy way possible with really healthy organ development, good vision, no problems, no bladder stones, and don't feed any of the brassica family if you can avoid, including kale. And can feed curation, but still, when they're young, I think it's better to keep it out of environment. Hydration is to stones and blockages. Brassica family prevents the absorption of, so like not when it comes to animals actually. So looking at a blend of food, yes, you can a little bit of fresh in there, but a large proportion of the plates, like the Americans do a lot of YouTubes about sort of the portions and how to section them up. So, but products, Arcadia are doing a great tortoise product, which is high grass, and tortoises love to eat it. The Missouri leaf tortoise diet is very good. I like using testudo, agrob, high grass to mix it, but ready, which you can get from decent pet supplier, is you might up and pit it ready, and actually groups and leptopeppers, and Turkish tortoises, they all get fed around here on a bed of ready grass. Even they get fed on fibre and get cobs put on top of their weeds to add dietary fibre to help slow. And I don't feed them every day.
No.
Do not feed your tortoise every day, particularly spring and autumn. But you kind of fast at least twice a week to make sure that you're not feeding them too much. And if you see growth ring on a young animal, then you know you're feeding too much. You want about a pile of food about the size of them, roughly. And particularly that I had problems growing too quickly, even enough. And a baby salmon's the size of the palm of your hand at 5 years old, and that's okay. It doesn't, some you see and they're almost verging on being, that long and nearly an adult. You absolutely don't want that. So don't feed them too much.
I mean, and that's a common thing with all reptiles is overfeeding. And
scaling
especially,
up, like getting the mm-hmm.
And we forget that us being mammals, we have to eat regularly and have to eat 3 times a day for us being mammals to maintain our body temperatures and stuff. But reptiles don't. They get most of their energy from light and not from the food that they eat. And so no matter what the reptiles, they don't need to be fed and shouldn't be fed every single day.
Yeah.
So, but again, we see it. It does, but it's that thing again where it just takes so long for the problems to be visualized in a tortoise. It takes so long. So, I mean, on sort of feeding, just in general, what are some of the worst things that people commonly tend to feed horses that they really shouldn't?
I think that messages get out of animals in so broccoli, beans. So basically the high protein options, because tortoises eat them like so readily and so enthusiastically, because in the wild they would be programmed, if they came across something really rich and fat, they instantly beeline for it.
Yep.
But in captivity is just so much of it, that's when they become unstuck, because they might find something high protein once in 5 years, and with us we're giving them things that are high protein every day, so that's why it's a problem. And also because the UK cooler, if that's combined with someone who's not helping their tortoise warm up on cooler days in Britain, particularly like a large animal, like a large female, that's when they're not eating properly, that's when they're getting stabilised and issue, etc. They're the worst. It's like come up and say feed their tortoise a crab stick on Sundays, and I'm like, where would you find a crab stick? Where would you find a crab stick? Or Mars bars, bananas, bread and milk used to be an old one. That used to be a sort of old lady feeding bread. They got told at the shop to feed it bread. Rosa. Park cooked broccoli or frozen peas. Frozen peas is lethal, absolutely lethal, because it's just so high in protein as well as high in oxalates. So that's really bad one. Cat and dog food used to be really bad. Obviously, you get some. There's over 200 types of tortoise in the world. Tortoise, and I'll get some that are worms and carrots and feed. So like the species they then they normally don't last that long. And if they're just they're only in there, they're not thriving. They're just hideous. So and often suffering.
No. Chris is in chat. He just popped on £2 onto Zoom to just say that it's 12 minutes away from 9 o'clock, where people will start swearing in the chat. The chat would probably go a little bit more crazy then. Just getting ready for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been happens across various streams at 9 o'clock. Yeah, people try and keep the chat family friendly until 9 o'clock, and then from 9 o'clock, a lot of chats go a bit mental. So, and yeah, all these things are still. And I mean, I recently had another friend who basically got a tortoise, and the place she got it from gave her this type sheet. She sent it to me, and I deleted over half of it. And it was for a Herman's, and on it was things like prawns, and I was like, "You what?" Don't give them that.
Okay.
So, and it was all sorts of things. So I was like, delete that, and literally got the tortoise club one. I was like, have a look at that one. You know, give on that one, and then also then check on tortoise sable as well. And so I was like, but there's still so many places that are giving out these bad sort of feeding sort of sheets that it's just unreal.
It's just regulated. Yeah, I was at Chris Lee's a couple of weeks ago.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a lot that we could do if we together.
So you froze again there.
Hi.
Can
you hear me again?
I can hear you. I can hear you, but you seem to be frozen. Craig's been a channel man for 4 months. Just Craig says it feels so with his DJ voice. Yeah, the voice, it's maybe slightly better, but there's more about sorts of like slugs and outside environment within programs. As yeah, we don't want to be even ones that like your rainforest species that I don't eat more protein and stuff. Still want to be very, very careful with protein. So yeah, like things like the elongated my mum has only really gets it if it finds it. Basically, it has to find slugs and snails in its outdoor enclosure, and then it'll get those, but doesn't get other things provided for it. Okay, that would be Steve's Animal Ark that had those for sale. No, that's what he does. They are, Jack. They are very, very cool. Hello.
Hi, how's that?
I can hear you even better now.
Yeah. I've got you on the computer now. I thought I'd give that a go.
So, yeah, I can hear you if you can, and you can hear me, yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're quiet, but I can probably do something about that. Technophobe.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Cool. Hopefully this is going to work.
Right, that's cool. So, just to recap a little bit, mailing. Also, I actually missed a couple of bits. You missed about the portions.
Yeah.
Sort of portioning things up for tortoises in terms of the diet.
Yeah, there's it's not the same all year round, and it depends on the type of animal, how old it is. But I'm sure you've all said that. There's the main thing is variety, not feeding all the same thing. At the centre, like we try to feed weeds when we can, and like for beginners, we discourage people from using bought produce. But the reality is, you can use a little bit. But the thing is, what we find with beginners is if you tell them they can feed a bit, then they come and they call the tortoise Charlie cucumber, and that's all it eats. So people listen to what they want to hear.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So, yeah, although like, we say like officially like don't feed lettuce and cucumber and tomato. Like the reality is, floret mixed salad, rocket, lamb's lettuce is great. And actually, but that's when the bought produce like the Arcadia tortoise food grass diet and stuff's really good. Just stay away from the coloured stuff because it's quite addictive and it's got like other things like fish in it which tortoises don't need. So stay away from the more brightly coloured stuff. And don't feed too much. And just crap loads of fibre. You can always tell from the other end, and lots of fluids as well. With the lighting, they're getting dehydrated a lot more than they would do in the wild, which is why you're damping down the substrate as well. So firstly to help them to grow smooth, but also to help prevent respiratory problems and to encourage them to grow smooth as well. So that's why we recommend to use like a sterilised topsoil mixed with play sand and some cocoa brick. So the cocoa brick's going to help hold in some moisture, as is the sand, but then you've got sterilised topsoil as well. You don't want to use a compost with any growing hormone in because that can affect tortoises, particularly if they're baby tortoises. And then we do a substrate change every couple of months, and then you can use that soil in the garden as long as the animal's not sick.
That's it. Yeah, so her sulcata is 2 years old.
Cute.
That's just got.
When they're that small, they've still got those amazing features. So the really big beady eyes, too big for their head, and the big scales. The desert species tend to have bigger scales to help hold in moisture in the heat. And actually, although they've got big eyes when they're little, when they're small, their eyes, when they're adults, their eyes are quite small because they live in quite a bright environment. So tropical species tend to have gorgeous big eyes even in adulthood.
Oh yeah. When you compare my sulcatas at work to my parents' redfoot tortoises, the eyes are so different to it. Like in comparison.
I can't believe people don't love redfoots more in this country. I think it's because there's so little literature about them. Actually, they're so personable, they're so gentle, they're easy to feed because they'll eat bought produce. They can have some fruit and veg, and you can keep them in a converted domestic shed, insulated shed, or windy house. You know, when the kid's grown up, like they are an awesome animal. yet people aren't fighting over them. It's absolutely bonkers. So I don't know. Maybe that's something to change. Try and do some videos on redfoot tortoises, because actually, if you're going to have a tropical, it's great because they don't grow too big. Leopards, I think, are a bit fragile. Personally, I think that they're prone to, for beginners particularly, they're firstly getting them to grow smooth. Secondly, respiratory problems. If you want to have a group, it's so easy to introduce something nasty and have mycoplasma in there. And leopard tortoises get so poorly. You know, you should always screen like it's worth every penny. Getting a mouth swab if you want to put another leopard tortoise in with another one. Like obviously quarantine's important, but you know they can remain dormant even if they're in quarantine. So actually, sometimes it's better to just pay and do the tests, do some quarantine, but also do the swab tests and the fecal samples to make sure.
I think like redfoots aren't, for some reason, aren't particularly popular in the UK. I mean, my mum's got what? About 6 leopards, 6 redfoots, I think. I think it's about to gain another like 2 or 3 redfoots as well, rehomed. All of them rehomed ones. And so, but what are sort of the most, from your experience, the most popular sort of kept species of tortoise in the UK, at least?
I would say hands down it's Hermann's tortoises, and the reason is because they are the most written about. The reality is spur thigh ibras are equally appropriate for keeping in a UK climate, but Hermann's, I think because they're the one that they say is the beginner's tortoise, people forget about the spur thigh ibras. The only thing you might say about Hermann's is they don't grow as big. So that might be why they might be a little bit more appropriate for a beginner. But spur thigh ibras, like some people might want a tortoise that's slightly bigger. So I think they get a bit of a raw deal. So yeah, that would be it. And then with tropicals, it's still in the UK, sulcatas, leopards and redfoots are like the top 3. But actually there are other breeds available that can be more appropriate to people's homes. So a lot of people are keeping hingeback tortoises now, which are a lot more petite. They can live in a very happily their whole life. They're quite personable if you spend time with them. Pancake tortoises, they've just changed their CITES status, but you know they breed very easily. The UK, we're very good at breeding them. They are available and they're great fun, and they can live in a vivarium their whole life. Like obviously some outdoor space is great, but they're 2 that do really well because you know not everyone's fortunate enough to have a secure garden and these animals out in. So we should be championing some of these breeds that you know aren't on people's radar.
Definitely. Pancakes they're fantastic species because they're a weird looking tortoise because they're so flat. It's the name Pancake, and just the speed they run out and climb up everything and stuff. They're fantastic.
Yeah, they're bonkers, like jumping beans. So.
Hey Charlotte, again, they've got pancake tortoises in with a plated lizard. They keep those together. We see that in a lot of zoos and stuff, and like that. Literally, the pancakes when they come out from their little sort of crevices and stuff, they're bombing around the place, all over the place, and climbing up things and kind of almost jumping around. They're fantastic things to see and watch. Hey, Aaron. So Jim's asked about Indian stars. How are they on the keeping level?
Indian stars, like my only experience, like historically, is that when they get sick in style. But actually, my only advice would be if you're going to go down that route, they're really beautiful. They're another one where you've got to be super strict with their high fiber diet to get them to grow really nice and smooth. But just make sure you're getting a clean animal. Because again, if these animals get mycoplasma, they get it chronic, same as leopard tortoises. So that would be my advice. Like if you get an animal that is not a carrier of mycoplasma, which is the equivalent of getting cold sores for humans, but they get like really bad rhinitis, then they're awful. But if you've got a healthy animal, low stress, you haven't got too many in your enclosure, you've done your research, you're feeding a high fiber diet, you have got your UV, and you're putting your supplements on, and you're not overpopulating with other stuff, then yes, they're really beautiful. But I think that there's going to be, yeah, that's all I can say about that, really. Interesting weird fact: in America, they really struggle to look after, like California and Southern California, Russian horsefield tortoises and leopard tortoises. They often get really bad respiratory problems. So I wonder if it's because there can be high humidity over there, because they've got the heat, but the humidity doesn't suit them. So maybe like they get like more bacteria issues. But they literally, a leopard tortoise, oh wow, you've got leopard tortoises, and it's like they treat them like they're radioactive over there, because they get sick so easily. Like you look at them and they're like dead. So that was really interesting. Like there's like a variation between country in terms of like what we keep leopard tortoises, and they're everywhere. And they've just been so widely sold in the pet trade. They're kind of not really, people don't really pay much attention to them. But again, if you grow them really slow, get them growing smooth, have a healthy group without mycoplasma, they are beautiful animals. And actually don't grow too big. They're quite manageable to keep them in a space. But the problem is there's just so much disease around. And also people that are prepared to make a little insulated shed and have a secure paddock and not have other animals is a really rare thing to find with a rescue centre. So yeah, problem, basically. Education. Let's have this conversation again in 5 years' time and see where we're at.
Yeah, this is it. I think it's
I think you've frozen up, but I didn't. So I don't know if it's me or if it's you or someone else.
sorry, that was me that time. My internet decided to turn itself off and on again. That was handy.
Yeah, okay.
Dodgy internet. What's going on today? I was going to about outdoor space and like secure shed and secure gardens. So I see a lot in my work when I do like a tortoise talk and stuff every day. If people keep tortoises, they'll literally come to me like, "Well, I can't keep my tortoise in a tortoise table all year or all its life." And I find a lot of people are under this impression that a tortoise table is a done deal and that's all it needs as an enclosure for the life of the tortoise.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's like it's a free world for people to have opinions, but I think that we could do a little bit more for there to be like a basic. There needs to be more encouragement for new keepers to understand that they have to have an outdoor space. I think that's often forgotten at point of sale, particularly when they buy a baby tortoise.
Yeah.
Because obviously when they're younger, they spend a lot more time on the table. But even I say, even from year one in the summer, you can put them out in the day as long as you've got mesh over your enclosure. Just make sure there's holes drilled in it so it doesn't become a swimming pool if it rains. And put plastic over, if you're there before it rains, to make sure that the enclosure doesn't fill with water. But yeah, that's been on my radar for quite a long time. That people aren't just feel really overwhelmed with having to build a space. Not everyone is DIY minded, and they just have no idea to do it. And the trade has tried to meet that by finding a product that can be sold, but it's still, no one's quite cracked it yet, because things that come up have been expensive or so I mean, what I try to do is videos when I've got time to try and practically show like A and B and do this and that, and also try and break it down to just say, it doesn't have to look like a miniature Kew Gardens when you first get an animal. You just need basic containment, like plants, and decoration comes later. Just make sure you've got your shelter, you've got your UV light, you've got your vitamins, and you've got a secure indoor and outdoor space. And plants come later. So, and less grass, get rid of your grass, make a hill so it can exercise. Tortoises like to climb.
They love hills.
Yeah, the only exception would be babies. You do have to keep it simple because their center of gravity is terrible and they're really prone to falling upside down. But except for that, give it a hill. Particularly if it's a female, because it can lay eggs in it as well. So turf up your grass, turn it upside down, make a hill in the middle. Done. I'm gonna make everyone jealous. Look, I've got this book. I brought it back from America.
Oh.
Turtle Conservancy. Look how sexy that is. This is like, it's done like National Geographical. Look at that. So you've got half naked people in it. So like they basically try to make tortoise and turtle conservation sexy, right? And their articles are actually, it's a really good read. And it's $25 for the year. Like, I don't know why I'm promoting them. Like, I don't work for them, but I just think they're awesome. So, and they're called Turtle Conservancy. You should look them up. They're very
definitely have a look at those.
Yeah. And they are one of these big organisations that buy land and try and conserve stuff in the wild. And the guy that founded it, look at that bedroom. Isn't that amazing? Like, look, how cool is that? So this is the guy who did the Netflix series during lockdown called Tiger King.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he was behind that, but his original money has come from owning hotels in New York, like cool hotels. There's one called the Bowery Hotel, which is like a really really cool kind of 1920s style hotel, where all the stars used to go and get trashed. So Google it if you've got nothing else to do. Look it up, Bowery Hotel. But anyway, he's now doing another series called Lizard King, I think, or Reptile King. So that's look out for that on Netflix. It's going to be so cool. But a lot of the money that's coming from these is going into buying land for conservation. So it's like a really cool bit to follow. Yeah. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things I'm thankful for, like getting into this hobby deep, is the people that I've met. And stateside, they're very American. Like they just, I think they're wired differently, just like in their outlook, and also just society. Like they raise so much money, like because it's a tax offset. So, some organisations have $2 million to run their projects for the year. It's just absolutely insane, like how much money that they put into conservation. And even like Walt Disney give zoos and conservation organisations money to do cool work and field research. And if you go to like the World Conference in America, there are like posters and students from all over North and South America that have done their degrees and masters on cool reptile projects. And there's normally like over 300 people from all over the world at these events, and you get to meet
like that, and everyone's together, so students and like experts. So he died quite recently, but on the first one I went to 10 years ago, so I hope this is interesting. I met Peter Pritchard, who found Lonesome George originally and wrote the book. How cool is that? And I was walking around like the Mexican Desert Museum. The Arizona Desert Museum with my friend Ashley, and we were like looking at lizards and cactuses, and this guy was like, we didn't know who he was just this old guy, and he was like, oh right, like, wow, he knows a lot, like and we we didn't know anyone, so we like Googled him when we got back to the hotel, and we're like, whoa. Crap, we've just spent the whole afternoon with this guy, but he was just so down to earth and like really chilled out. And it turns out that he had like one of the biggest collections of sort of tortoise and turtle bones and shells and books, which this organization, Turtle Conservancy, have bought, and it's now at their center in California after the guy passed away. But yeah, just a stupid story.
That was brilliant. And it's only because, just as you were saying, that Jim pointing that he was over for time, but he's got the Encyclopedia of Turtles by Dr. Peter.
I know, the dude, right? I can't believe it. Like, I had that book too, and then like when I looked it up, I'm like, oh my god, there's such like a Homer Simpson moment. Like, I'm just like, I can't believe I just did that. I'm just So this guy knows a lot.
Yeah. Well, look, these things happen though, don't they? It's like when I first met Frances Baines, and I first didn't know, I knew of Frances Baines, but when I was talking to Frances Baines, I didn't know that was her at first and stuff. And then now she's a friend and stuff, and it's all like, what? Hey, you're not talking to the Frances Baines? What's going on?
Yeah, sort of thing. She's done so much. I mean, someone should nominate her for a medal, really. What she's done to, like, for the reptile world, I think is, should be marked in some way.
Yeah, so much. Hey, Graham. So, hey, Trond. So, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the subject of books, are there like any particular books that you'd actually recommend to people to get when thinking of getting a tortoise or have a tortoise?
There isn't like an absolute go-to for a beginner at the moment. I think for beginner stuff, like just trusted websites for the information sheets, it's probably the best place to go at the moment. So there's a recommended list of websites on the Tortoise Club website, but also the Tortoise Table, Hermione Haven, Chris Leone, Garden State Tortoise, the YouTube channel. They're all places where you can trust the information that's being put down. But when you start wanting to know a bit more about tortoises, the book's done by a chap called Wolfgang. I was actually selling the books earlier on in the year. I think you might have bought one actually.
I bought two, and then my mum saw you at the Ely one or whatever, and bought the other one, but luckily enough didn't buy one that I'd already got.
Yeah. So you can buy them on Amazon. I'm sure you can fix everyone up with the link. And my organisation helped fund the English translation from German to try it, because it's based on 30 years of observations in the wild, and he just hadn't bothered to translate anything other than his first book, which is Hermans and How They Live in the Wild. And then he also had a second book, which is Tortoises in the Wild and How They Live. And then he had another one, Feeder Plants Observed in the Wild. So plants that he's actually seen tortoises eat in the wild. And we were like, why haven't you done these? And he goes, well, I'm not sure there's any call for it. And it's like, yes, there is. Yes, there is. So we put a grant together to do a basic translation. And then my partner, who's a writer, helped do the subbing to make it like a good read. So we're hoping, like, if he ever does a second edition of his first book, that we can help sub it. So it's because at the moment, this is the thing, often when you get books from Germany, Italy, Spain, France, sometimes, or even like academic papers, the writing is a bit broken, like it's a bit clunky. because it's just been put in a machine and then tidied up
Yeah.
a bit. So, but the idea is that we can actually try and get it so there's more publications that people can read and, you know, try and make it more widely available. Because the thing in Europe is we've got so many different languages, and the knowledge is out there, and it's just a huge barrier for all of us. So France, Italy, Spain, particularly Germany, there's some amazing people who've done great work, but they don't speak English. Like, I'm not saying everyone should speak English, but we should be trying to make an effort to translate, you know, try and cherry pick like the top 10 each year and put them in a journal. So that's what we're trying to work on at the moment. So this is with European Turtle Alliance. So Tortoise Club is my roots from 20 years ago. That is keepers to the bone, like helping support keepers and improving welfare in captivity. But I kind of outgrew that quite early on and set up an organisation called Tortoise Welfare UK, which it was about trying to bring the whole community together UK wide. So that's like pet trade, private keeper, zoo, everyone. And then that quickly grew into actually being the European Turtle Alliance, which I've now run for 10 years. We were originally Turtle Survival Alliance, which was in partnership with America, but because our objectives were so different, because of creative differences, we are now independent, and it's called European Turtle Alliance. So that is what I do. So running the conferences, getting international speakers in, and trying to encourage more people. If anyone out there is thinking about doing a master's or PhD and doesn't mind doing it in tortoises, please message me, because that's like one of the main campaigns that we're trying to encourage more scientific work in the area, because there's so little representation in Europe. And yeah, so, and the dream is to eventually actually have a world conference, us to host the world conference in Europe, where we can actually have translation papers for non-native speakers. So like you'd have, say, someone who speaks in Italian, there would be scripts in English, German and French, for example, or Dutch, so that everyone could follow. Even if the person talking wasn't talking in your language, you could see the slides, but you could follow with the written text. So yeah, watch this space.
And that'd be something really cool, to be fair.
Yeah. So and it's really cool because like BHS, it's really nice to see what you guys are doing, because I know like it's been not, you know, I know you were there, so it trying to get everyone to like not just look at beginner guides, but with tortoises, it's so frustrating because in the UK, so many people are at that level. But what I find is if you slowly slip in, like when I do the talk, some of the conference days in the early years, we would have talks on husbandry, but we'd always like layer it with some conservation ones as well. Because what I found is if you slip in an odd one about freshwater turtles or tricarinata or you know, Asian box turtles, you would get suddenly it's just exposing people. I think just because we haven't had the exposure to native species, and tortoises have always been sold as the English garden tortoise, it's just not even on people's radar that they should be supporting it and getting excited by it and learning about it, and that there's an opportunity to really nerd out on it and have friends like across the globe. And yeah, sorry, I just went off on one there.
Actually, he's a big turtle. He loves the turtles. He's asking, do you keep any turtle species at home, or I suppose like I said, do you have any turtles?
Yeah, so what I've done is I've kept a lot of species over the 20 years, but because of the centre and because of biosecurity and time, we try not to keep anything like something of everything. So I've done red-eared sliders, cooters, European pond turtles, you know, like all the common stuff. And I've also done Moretti and Galbanifrons, but now I've got a breed called Tricarinata, which is quite an unusual breed, and just Mexican box turtles. So just bits and pieces. Our main priority is terrestrial, because that's just what we're set up for. I would obviously musks and stuff come in, but and I've got an alligator snapper. Does that count?
I think that counts.
Does it count? Yeah. And I've got a Vietnamese leaf turtle as well at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, he's awesome. So,
at the mentioned sort of before, how many individuals does the centre cater for at any one sort of time?
we have a capacity to have over 200 souls on site if we want to, but to comfortably. But that's emergency. So, like during lockdown, it's been hideous just because it completely messed up our flow. So we're only really just starting to get back on our feet at the moment, even financially. So I would say like we can house 30. We have 30 outdoor spaces where we can individually house tortoises in a biosecure way. And obviously some females will come in together so they can go in the same enclosure. And we do have some resident groups. So I've got an elderly group of Hermann's tortoises. I've got Madagascan radiated tortoises that are here permanently. But then we have just the run-of-the-mill Turkish Berthai and then the more unusual Moroccan, North African whitey eye. We try not to hold on to anything that's super delicate. So anything that would count as delicate is anything that's like Northern Africa Berthai. So that would be Nebulensis, Faimani, and also Algerian whitey eye, Libyan, Moroccan. And we're particularly looking for people who are interested in looking after a slightly more unusual species of Berthai tortoise, because I really think as soon as people can get in there and start doing studies, a lot of these animals are suddenly going to go on the sexy list, because no one's gone to see how many are left. And the reality is, in a lot of spaces, there's only wildlife corridors now. There's not even primary habitat left. So yeah, they're there, but we've missed the boat on being able to kind of observe actually how they live in the wild, because there isn't enough wild to actually make a real study. So, again, going off on a tangent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Leah, unusual question, just said when she saw you at the AHHBHS conference, it was awesome to talk to. And do you still have details in case you need sulcatas rehome? So she was in the scooter.
It will be in my book, but feel free to also message me through the Tortoise Club website. The main thing we're looking for is with sulcatas is their space. Just when they reach adulthood, they are ridiculous. I mean, and also just the support for someone. Like I couldn't lift one on my own, so you've got the support network to help you get that animal indoors. If it decides that it doesn't want to go indoors.
It can be a pain. I speak from experience of my male at work is 55 kilos. And if he doesn't want to move, you ain't moving him.
It's a miniature pony with a shell that will sit down on you and not move. Is basically that. That's how I describe sulcata as miniature pony with a shell that needs to stay warm.
And if you anger it, it's going to headbutt you.
Yeah,
it's a male.
That's right. I mean, I know they do target training and stuff, but it's not a fail safe for sure.
No, we try it. I try it with mine and stuff, and it's like that's based on having like some nice flowers around or whatever, and then there's some grass over. I'll just eat this sort of thing.
Yeah,
it's just like,
I'm done. I mean, I actually think sulcatas, as beautiful as they are, I do think that possibly they need to be regulated, just so people appreciate them a bit more, and maybe we can up the standard if they have a bit more of a value. It's one of those things. Buy really expensive animals and still do terrible things to them. So,
it wouldn't. You'd hope that it would help reduce it somewhat, because I think they're sometimes sold far too cheaply, and quite small. Like you see baby sulcata that fit in on the palm of your hand for under £100 sometimes, and even in today's climate with cost of living and stuff, people go, well, I could afford it on an animal. Don't think about all the lighting and everything else, all the heating and how much the engine bills are going to be for that one animal, and so, and then just how big it's actually going to get as well, or how big it should get.
Yeah.
eventually, and sort of thing that he's going to start bashing around everything. They are just bulldozers as well, and
I mean, they're great that they're animated and they eat grass. But I mean, I'm surprised again why people aren't that interested in Burmese browns, like Manuria Emmys. So they're like the jungle giant.
Yeah, they were meant. Actually, Jim mentioned those earlier. He said they're starting to be more available on the market, kind of thing, or they seem to be more available.
There's one guy who's bred them recently, and that what I found, like, I was one of the first people to breed Manuria Emmys probably about 15 years ago in Europe, and it's exciting because no one else was breeding them, but they were so unusual. No one knew what they were, and it was actually really hard to find homes for them. So I actually stopped hatching out. But the other thing is, there's so few individuals in Europe that are pure bloodline. So they're mixed with Burmese black, which is the critically endangered one, the Ferai, and Burmese brown, which is the slightly smaller, more personable one. And because a lot of zoos kept the two together, they interbreed. So there's a huge ethical issue with, is that okay that we are encouraging and subscribing to buy a beautiful animal, which is fine as a pet, but an animal that's going to live over 100 years, but it's a hybrid? And, are we actually contributing to the extinction of a breed by buying something that's a hybrid? And the same goes with Galapagos tortoises. Like, we can't buy them in the pet trade, but even in captivity, like, it's really fiercely regulated in America. Like, they really struggle to move animals over state lines. And also, like, the problem is a lot of zoos have breeding adults, but the adults have come from different islands. So actually genetically they're different, and they're different subspecies. So the problem is, because tortoises are so personable, zoos will often not release an animal because everyone loves it as an individual, as a person. So they're actually contributing to their demise because animals won't exchange, even if it's actually going to help. And the reality is also that females can hold on to sperm for many years. So actually the amount of years you'd have to wait before you hatch out, it's such a long game with tortoises. No one's prepared to kind of look at that program unless they're going to get forced, like how long you'd have to loan that animal out for to actually get somewhere. So sorry, this is me getting really nerdy.
No, I love it. And I mean, and these are things that need to be addressed and need to be talked about and stuff. Because
well, Chris Leone talks about it, like with hermits and Tortoises, and I think he has been really instrumental in putting on people's radar that people want own type locale animals, and this is going to be the future. And actually, you know what, we should be encouraging it, because we should be preserving an animal that came from Libya, which can also breed with an animal from Morocco, because in the future that they are very different. Their markings are different, their behavior is different, their diet is, their dietary preferences is different, their habitat is different. So there's so many animals that are just being overlooked because they're brown in England. Like, everyone's going, oh, this is cool, I want to have this tortoise because it's got amazing markings. We have got some really cool stuff in the UK, and we are spoiled. Like, meeting Chris Leone, he was just so excited about Algerian white eyes. He's like, he couldn't believe that you could have a tortoise that's 3 or 4 kilos in weight, like the really big spur thigh females that still turn up from time to time, because they never had them in America. So but we have a lot of them in the UK. The only problem is we possibly need to be keeping them a bit warmer. A lot of these really big elderly females have had egg stasis. And I'm convinced it's because they just need to be kept that little bit warmer. So we do annoy people, but we say, if you want females and you want to adopt, we do ask that you have a greenhouse or a combi shed or equivalent, because the females really do benefit from having more help with being warmer. And that's key. And I think that Luke Harding down at Paignton Zoo proved that when he started putting halogen lights and worked with Francis Baines to do the T5 tubes and the halogens over a separate room with sand, and they started laying eggs. Like, the same applies to the smaller breed. Like, this is what we now need to be applying to our keeping practice. If you have a large female, you need to be thinking about a greenhouse is the cheapest way, because obviously just with glass, you don't have to throw electric at it. Yes, you can do it with halides and combi greenhouse as well. But however you do it, giving extra heat, particularly to females, is very important.
Definitely. Hey, Scott.
Waggly finger out.
So, Jim was asking something actually probably for anyone knows. How do you sign up to do rehome? He would happily build any enclosure for any animal that you throw at him.
Ah, okay. Well, careful what you wish for, because it's time. I mean, it's alarm bells if you say you'll take everything, because what we really want is people who can invest time and have thought about what their absolute top bucket list animals are, and then we want to help you find them. And unless you have endless bottomless bank account, lots of space and staff, then there is a limit to what you can keep. But yes, think about what you would like, and then you just have to go to the tortoiseclub.org website, fill in the really simple form, say that you've joined us today and that you're interested, and then the next step is a quick photo of an indoor and outdoor space that you have in mind to keep a tortoise, and then we can talk to you about what the breeds that we've got available that might be appropriate to the space that you have available and what you're interested in. So sometimes it's a bit backwards. So we always give people like choices, but yeah, it depends on what space you've got, really.
And I think that's quite a good way to do it. Like, okay, yeah, because you can see in what space someone's going and go, well, these species may be, more suited and stuff. Which is, I think that's quite a nice way of doing it.
I want a sulcata course because it's big, and I go, oh, okay. Any other reason? And actually, sometimes when you actually talk about what's involved, they're not so interested.
Yeah.
But you also get it the other way around as well. Like, sometimes people will meet and they're absolutely captivated, of course, because they're amazing animals, and they'll do anything to make it happen. So, and we'll always support that.
I mean, as much as I love sulcatas and I love the size of them, I would also love to work with Egyptians at the complete opposite end of the scale. And don't see a huge amount of those. That's all they're so small.
Yeah, I mean, they are around. I mean, it is worth registering with the European Studbuck Foundation if you're interested in rare breeds, because although there's a bit of a blip at the moment because of Brexit, we were really kind of getting somewhere on having like a European Studbuck. But now it's going to be a few years, but there are animals knocking around within the UK. So if you are interested in rarer breeds, it's worth registering with the European Turtle Alliance for starters on their newsletter. And secondly, registering with the European European Studbuck Foundation, ESF, which are based in the Netherlands, and expressing an interest. The only thing is you might have to be prepared to pay for the paperwork to get the animal transferred as if it's, going abroad, because we're not in the EU anymore. There's a lot of paperwork. And at the moment, they're shying away from it. But if you keep asking and you can provide a really good setup, there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't be offered some animals at some point.
Yeah, no, I was quite lucky a few years ago to meet Hang Suport before he passed away and stuff, and saw he done a talk on the Egyptian tortoise and stuff, and it was a fantastic talk.
Yeah, he's amazing, and I'll forever be mourning that he was teaching me so much in such a short space of time, and to lose him so suddenly. When he retired, he went to Australia, for those of you who don't know, and he went to bed when he arrived in Australia, and he didn't wake up. Yeah. So it was a huge shock to the community. And then 6 months later, another guy called Hans Dieter Philippin from Germany, he went to have a rest in his chair, and he didn't wake up either. And there was 3 of us on the TSA Europe board. There was Hans Dieter, Henk Schwarz-Porter, and then was me. And Henk and Hans Dieter were teaching me everything that, to be like the third member, to set up. And then suddenly it was just me.
Yeah.
So then I've spent the last 6 years, well, it's now coming up for 8 years, just rebuilding, basically. So speaking to all the different curators and looking at what the next chapter will be, because European turtle conservation will never be the same, because Henk and Hans Dieter were the lifeblood of it, and they brought their individuality was the identity. So the future is always going to be different. But I think we're now 10 years on, got some really positive objectives, and the main one is sort of a 3-stream mantra, which is to try and aid translation, to encourage masters and PhD research, and to do our conferences. So, and they are things that we are doing regularly every year. So we've got a big conference coming up in November. We've had Jerry Fife, who's really into lizards and tortoises, from America, who's agreed to come over and speak. He's one of the few privates to have bred Galapagos tortoises.
Nice.
But he's also going to be talking about Ethiopian giant leopard tortoises. But he's like a walking dictionary when it comes to lizards and tortoises. He's a really cool guy. So he's coming over. And then you heard it here first, Chris Leone is coming over next May to do a special talk as well.
That's fantastic. Where can people find details for like conferences and talks and stuff?
The main thing is to join the mailing list for the European Turtle Alliance. So it's turtlesurvival.eu. If you're on that mailing list, or you're on the Tortoise Club mailing list, you will get a notification as it comes out. The first thing you'll see is a provisional speakers list. We're also hoping to have Peter Prushard from Turtle Island in Austria, who's an amazing guy. He's coming over to speak in November as well. So yeah, if you're interested in weird reptiles, even if you're not a complete tortoise turtle person, these are interesting people. You may want to come. I can tell you the date.
We just found the link for turtlesurvival.eu.
Yep.
So I'll just put that into chat there.
And the conference weekend is going to be November. So Friday, the 10th of November to Sunday, the 12th. And there'll be meals, and there'll be like hospitality evenings so people can get to know each other. So yeah, put it in your diary now.
So, and I would say anyone who's perhaps never been to a conference about anything and doesn't know what I highly recommend people go to conferences. You do learn a huge amount, but there's also a lot of networking that goes on at conferences, and stuff. And you'll see a huge amount. Like, I always go to the BHS conference every year, and it's always a great weekend there. I do zoo conferences, but then I've been to things like the British Polonia group conference at Milton Keynes, and that's always a good one as well when I get to go to that. So if you're into your tortoises, look at these conferences, get to them, and you'll probably learn a huge amount, and also gain a lot more contacts with people that you can sort of get advice from and stuff, and you'll come away just knowing a huge amount more than what you had done before, and even like get you thinking a bit differently sometimes as well.
Yeah, and accidentally meet people like Mark O'Share over lunch in the queue for lunch. What?
Yeah, just like, oh, it's Mark O'Shea. Okay, hello.
I remember watching him when I was like 12. What?
Same here. Like, and now it's like, I see him at almost every conference. I'm like, I remember watching him when I was a kid, and like, everyone else is like, Steve Irwin. And I was like, no, Mark O'Shea. But like, now it's just like, oh, hi, Mark. It's it's an odd one when it becomes a day. Like I remember watching it all on TV and stuff. But the oldest one for me was one time getting one of his books, and as he was signing it, a young lad came up asking for a photo, and I presumed he wanted a photo with Mark because it's Mark. And he's like, no, I want a photo with you, Phil. I was like, what? What are you on about? You got Mark O'Shea here.
You should have done some guidance and say you want combo here.
So, I mean, that's the thing with at these conferences, these are the sort of people that you are going to end up potentially bumping into and even having a chat with just over lunch potentially and stuff. And you'll just get so much out of it. Like, you might just bump into the Francis Baines, that one or whatever, and stuff that, you've never perhaps spoke to. And then, you just get into a whole big conversation on lighting and stuff, and you'll just come away just mind blown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just going to be really inspiring, but also fun. I think the hobby can be quite insular and like great if you're not like a social person. Like I've never been a social person. I wasn't at school. I was also really shy. But actually, get me in a room with people where they've got a similar interest to me, and it totally changes, and it can be really good fun. And it can be like a really anxious thing to do. But even if you just come like just with a day pass to start with, and you come with a friend, it's normally really good fun. You don't have to talk to anyone if you don't want to. But yeah, I recommend being brave and saying hello and where you're from. And actually, like nearly everyone's really friendly unless they're an asshole, in which case they can go away.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, and his things, especially if it's Jamie Norris Reptiles has just joined us.
Hello.
But yeah, at these things, if you're at a conference, at the end of the day, you're there with people that are most probably have exactly the same interests as you, especially if it's just a tourist conference. If you're not sure what to say, people are like, what do you keep? Which species do you have? Bang, there you go. You've now got, a whole nice long conversation with someone on something that you both love.
Yeah. And we've all made mistakes. That's another thing. Anyone
absolutely.
who says that they've never done anything wrong or acts like they have is lying.
Yeah, we've all been there and done that, and the thing is, that's how you learn. You make mistakes and you learn from it, and so it's good to own your mistakes and to go, you know what, I've done bad there, but I mean the way the way me and my parents kept 20 years ago, look back at it and go, my God, I wouldn't dream of doing that now.
Me, I'm like, oh my God, like. There's so much I've learned along the way, and I always try and stay really reflective, like with the people that I'm around and who volunteer with me. I'm learning things from them. Like they go away and read, and it's like, wow, tortoises can eat that. Like I didn't know that. I'm learning plants all the time. There's so many different hundreds of plants that you can feed animals, and the inspiration as well. Like I'm a really visual person. I absolutely love Pinterest, and the explosion of inspiration that you can get for enclosure design, particularly when it comes to tortoises, is superb now. So I've got a Pinterest account called Tortoise Matters, where I have autistically saved lots of things from arty crap to enclosures, which some of you may find interesting. So baby tortoises, adult tortoises one, there's a sulcata enclosure one, there's a jewelry one, like there's just kind of a bit of everything. But that's just another platform. The only one I haven't really done is TikTok. Like, I know everyone's like doing TikTok, but how do you find TikTok?
It's a slog I do TikTok every now and then like come on it, and it's so full of really bad animal stuff. Because it's still quite a young platform, you get there's only so much you can do in a few seconds.
Yeah.
Thing. And you scroll through it. There's some good stuff on there, but at the same time, there's a lot of bad on. I mean, there is on YouTube as well, but
I think it's a generation thing. Like, I want to find some young, enthusiastic people who like tortoises, and they can just come and like TikTok their brands out here. That's what I want, because I just, I think I draw the line at TikTok. Like, I'm not saying it's not a good thing. I just don't have enough time in my life to do TikTok as well.
Yeah, no, I've done a few, and I've done a couple. Certainly last year, with the tortoises, where I was like, we had a 40-degree day, and my male sulcata, it was just too hot for him. And I was like, look, it's the sulcata, he's in the shade, and because it's too hot for him. Another thing. And someone was like, this is a bit mental if it's getting too hot for sulcata in the UK. Another thing.
Yeah.
And like, he was just looking at me like, what the hell is this? Another thing.
Yeah. Way too hot.
And it was because although the air temperature was like 40 degrees, taking a temperature gun onto the ground and even onto a shell in the shade, the temperatures it was getting to was like, it was extreme.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that a lot of people don't get taught and don't realize. It's something I had to be taught myself, was like, actually, they get far hotter than what the air temperature is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and when I haven't observed sulcatas firsthand, but they'll hide in the height of heat as well. And even Hermann's tortoises or Moroccan tortoises that I've seen in the wild, they're out first thing feeding, and then you won't see them at all from 11 o'clock right through till 3, and then they'll come out again and feed. So, like, maybe in spring they'd be out in the middle of the day when it's cooler, but certainly kind of like June, July, you won't see them in the middle of the day because it's too hot.
Yep. And, with my sulcatas here, that's kind of what I see with them here, is that, I've got, like, as I live on site, I have permission that when it's, the height of summer, I will leave them out far longer and let them graze, because their active period will be perhaps from kind of 4 in the afternoon or even 5 in the afternoon through to like 8 at night. Kind of thing. That's then like, no, this is when we want to be active because it's now a nice temperature for us. Kind of thing.
Last year was a weird year for everybody.
So it's just like, I'll just come down and check on you at sort of 9 o'clock. Oh, you're all back inside now. Cool. I'll shut you in. And so, and then let's face it, it's far less stress on them trying, and on me trying to get them in at 5 when they don't, when they're like, well, no, we want to be active now.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a compromise. I mean, sometimes you have to go out and it's going to be way too cold by the time you get home and you have to bring them in.
Yeah.
That is the reality of captivity. It is a compromise, and it's never going to be identical to habitat. So, yeah, leaving things au naturel.
Erin wants to know if you keep anything other than tortoises and turtles.
I've got a Californian king snake because I've always wanted one, and I had a friend who had one in my teens, so he's great. And what else have I got? I had a leopard gecko for a bit, but she's on loan at the moment with some responsible kids who adore her, so that's fine. I got a dog, but reptile-wise, not that much. I'm a bit nomadic, so I travel quite a lot, go to conferences, do lectures. So there's a reason why there's certain species. So, like, I'd love to do chameleons and lizards, monkey-tail skinks, anything like that. But they need stability. With me, with the tortoises, like, I've got the team here at the centre to look after them when I'm not here. But it's asking too much to give them like a very large menagerie to look after when I'm not here, particularly something specialist. So it is pretty basic. I've made that life choice to try and do like the conservation stuff and, you do have to make choices not to spread yourself too thin, because otherwise it's the animals that suffer. So yes, there's lots of beautiful animals that I would love to have at home, but I deliberately don't keep them. But I'm very fortunate to have lots of friends that have really cool iguanas, komodos, well, not komodos, but monitor lizards and really cool stuff that I can go visit. So it's a compromise, really.
Yeah, that's an important thing. That again, sometimes people don't necessarily think about when getting animals is the compromise you've got to make of that. There's certain animals that if you were to keep them, then you got to compromise and not go on holidays or traveling or whatever.
Yeah.
Perhaps as often as you would like or whatever. And there's certain species that will allow you can compromise less with, and some, like I know for well I can't go away for all the time and everywhere with all the stuff that I privately keep and stuff, and that's that sacrifice that you make. I think, but there's some people that don't sometimes realise that that's something that you have to think about.
It's really hard to leave, and there's some of these really famous collections. When you actually go and talk to them, they're like, "Yeah, I don't leave. I just don't leave. And if I leave, like it's only for 48 hours, and then I'm back again, or it's a big deal if I go for a week." So,
absolutely. So, as Vibe said, I'm going to probably cut the show because my voice is going again.
You've done so well. You've done so well.
It completely went like yesterday evening on the way back from the British Rancher Society. My voice was just going. I was like, "What the hell's going on?"
And,
it's a bit of a thing. I was glad I've had a bit of a voice.
Jim's Reptile Jungle says I haven't been on holiday since 2015. It's like, I hear you. There's so many, it is a price, and I've done it. I had like on site, like I said, I know we can have 200 animals on site because I was that person. But we're now right down. We tend to keep it down to under 100 animals on site at any one time, because it's a more manageable amount that can be left. It probably doesn't sound like a manageable amount, but many of those are in groups of 10 or 8 or 6, so it kind of adds up. And some of those are babies as well. I do breed a small amount of baby tortoises because there's some people where you just cannot persuade them to adopt, and I would rather they bought a baby from me and got like grilled and given everything that they need to make sure that animal's going to be all right. So I do a little bit of breeding. I'm loving that everyone talking on comments. It's very funny. They're having a great time.
Matt Trasher Rookie said the only thing he's trying about Bloodstones Festival that I go to, and he's joining me this year.
Nice.
Even the Invets and Frog. So that's pretty much for a week.
Yeah, what's a festival? That would be amazing. Because I'm a real petrol head. I like cars, so I like going to shows. So anyway, you need to go and rest your voice. I can come and talk another time about something else if people found it interesting. I'm happy to try again.
I'm sure everyone did. And I'd love to have you on again and chat. Yeah, tortoises and stuff again. Hopefully, another time my voice will be in full working order.
Yeah, no worries.
That's
Thanks for having me.
I'll pop the Tortoise Club website back in chat for people to go and check out.
And they're not already a member, it's only £10 for the year, and you get invited to online talks and events, Q&A, and you get discounts as well, etc., etc. So do consider it. It really helps with the sanctuary that I've been bagging on about.
I know Ginger says.
I know some of you already are. I've already stitched you up, so.
And so I'll put the turtlesurvival.eu site back in there as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Anna, for joining me, and thanks everyone in chat who's been watching. So I believe Scott's live tomorrow with Spa Spiders, so check that out. So, but till next time, guys, I'll say good night.